In the shadowed halls of Erdoria's grand palace, where marble floors echoed with the whispers of ancient kings, Prince Harlan paced restlessly under the weight of his crown. At 40 years old, he had ruled wisely through wars and famines, his broad shoulders bearing the scars of battles fought and decisions made. But his heart remained an empty throne. The royal advisors pressed him daily, "Sire, an heir is needed. Marry a princess of noble blood." Yet Harlan yearned not for alliances forged in gold, but for a soul who could see beyond the jewels and scepters, a woman of true understanding, whose love would mend the fractures in his weary spirit. His late mother's words haunted him, "Power without warmth is a cage, my son." Driven by this ache, he decided to seek his destiny beyond the palace walls. Disguised as a common wanderer, Harlan donned ragged trousers stained with mud, a threadbare shirt that hung loosely over his muscular frame, and a cloak patched from scraps. He smeared dirt across his chiseled face, hiding the regal lines that spoke of his lineage. No guards accompanied him, secrecy was his shield. Guided by a trusted scout, he ventured into the bustling border town of Riverton, a melting pot of merchants, farmers, and outcasts from distant lands. Here, in this chaotic haven far from Erdoria's opulence, he hoped to find authenticity amid the ordinary. Meanwhile, in the gleaming skyscrapers of Viridia City, Alena Vos stared out from her penthouse window, her reflection a portrait of quiet desperation. At 34, she was the sole heir to her father's billion-dollar empire in tech and real estate. Victor Vos, a ruthless tycoon with a heart as cold as his steel vaults, had built his fortune on cutthroat deals and unyielding ambition. But Alena craved escape from the gilded prison of boardrooms and forced galas. "You must marry, Alena," her father decreed during their last heated argument. A suitable match to secure the legacy, someone with influence, not some fool. Yet she dreamed of a partner who valued her mind over her money, a man who could ignite passion without the shadow of greed. Defying her father's spies, Alena fled to Riverton under the cover of night. She traded her designer gowns for a simple cotton dress, frayed at the hems, and a faded apron. Her long auburn hair, usually styled in elegant waves, was tied back in a practical knot. Posing as a humble orange vendor named Lila, she set up a modest stall in the town's central market, hawking crates of sun-ripened fruit bought from local growers. The scent of citrus masked the perfume of her former life, and the calluses forming on her hands were badges of her rebellion. Each sale was a small victory, a step toward proving she could thrive without the Vos name. But loneliness gnawed at her. In the evenings, as she counted her meager coins, she wondered if true connection was just another illusion. The market square of Riverton buzzed like a hive, alive with haggling voices, the clatter of carts, and the aroma of street food. Harlan, now calling himself Thorn, wandered through the throng, his keen eyes scanning faces not for threats, but for sparks of genuine humanity. He took odd jobs, hauling crates, mending fences, to blend in, his royal training in strategy now applied to survival. One sweltering afternoon, as the sun beat down mercilessly, he paused at a fruit stand drawn by the vibrant oranges piled high. Behind the stall stood Alena, Lila, her smile warm as she bantered with a customer. "Fresh from the groves, sir. One bite, and you'll taste summer itself." Harlan approached, his voice roughened to match his disguise. "How much for a dozen?" he asked, fishing out a few coppers from his pocket. Their eyes met briefly, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. Elena's gaze lingered on his strong build, hidden beneath the grime, sensing an undercurrent of quiet strength. "2 silvers, she replied, her tone light but her heart quickening inexplicably. As they exchanged coins, a sudden commotion erupted nearby. A runaway horse, spooked by a backfiring wagon, charged through the crowd, its hooves thundering against the cobblestones. Screams filled the air as people scattered. Alena turned just in time to see the beast barreling toward her stall. In a panic, she tried to leap aside, but her foot caught on a loose crate. She tumbled hard, her head striking the edge of a wooden beam with a sickening thud. Pain exploded through her skull, and the world blurred into darkness. Harlan, instincts honed from years on the battlefield, reacted instantly. He vaulted over a nearby barrel, shoving a bystander out of harm's way before reaching Eleanor's side. "Hold on," he shouted, cradling her limp form as blood trickled from a gash on her forehead. The horse veered away at the last second, crashing into empty stalls instead. Chaos reigned, but Harlan focused solely on her, tearing a strip from his cloak to staunch the wound. "Stay with me," he murmured, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. When Eleanor's eyes fluttered open moments later, she found herself in the arms of this stranger, Thorn, his face etched with concern. You saved me," she whispered, disoriented but grateful. Around them, the market began to settle, vendors rushing to help. Harlan helped her to her feet, his touch gentle yet firm. "Just a bump. You'll be all right. Let me get you to a healer." Reluctant but weakened, Elena allowed him to guide her to a nearby apothecary's tent. As the healer bandaged her head, they talked, haltingly at first. Harlan shared fabricated tales of his travels as a laborer, while Elena spoke of her simple life selling oranges, omitting the billions waiting back home. There was an ease between them, a natural rhythm that neither had felt in years. By evening, as the sun dipped low, Harlan offered to walk her to her rented room in a dingy inn. "Can't have you fainting on the way," he said with a wry smile. Over the next few days, their paths intertwined like vines in a forgotten garden. Harlan found excuses to visit her stall, helping her restock crates or chase away persistent hagglers. Elena, in turn, shared meals with him, simple bread and cheese under the stars, where conversations flowed from laughter to deeper confessions. "I've always felt out of place," she admitted one night, staring at the flickering lantern. "Like I'm wearing a mask that doesn't fit." Harlan nodded, his own secrets heavy on his tongue. Masks can protect, but they also suffocate. Unbeknownst to them, shadows lurked in Riverton's alleys. Elena's father, Victor Voss, had not taken her disappearance lightly. He dispatched private investigators, led by a cunning operative named Marcus, to track her down. Marcus, a former spy with a scar across his cheek and a loyalty bought with Voss gold, arrived in town under the guise of a trader. He quickly pieced together rumors of a new orange seller matching Elena's description. "She's here," he reported via a hidden communicator. "And she's not alone, some drifters hovering around her." At the same time, back in Eldoria, Harlan's absence stirred unrest. His scheming cousin, Lord Cedric, saw opportunity in the prince's vanishing. Cedric, a man of sharp features and sharper ambitions, had long coveted the throne. Whispering poison into the ears of the council, he claimed Harlan had abandoned his duties, perhaps even defected. "We must act for the kingdom's stability," Cedric urged, his eyes gleaming with hidden intent. Spies from the palace trickled into Riverton, searching for their wayward ruler. One fateful evening, as Harlan and Elena sat by the riverbank, sharing stories under a canopy of stars, a subtle shift occurred. Elena laughed at one of Harlan's jests, her hand brushing his. The touch sent a spark through both, unspoken desires awakening. "Thorn," she said softly, "why do I feel like I've known you forever?" He hesitated, the weight of his true identity pressing down. Before he could respond, a rustle in the bushes caught his ear. Out stepped Marcus, flanked by two burly henchmen. "Elena Voss," Marcus sneered, his voice cutting through the night. "Your father's been worried sick. Time to come home." Elena's face paled, her disguise shattered in an instant. Harlan stood protectively, his body tensing for a fight. "Who are you? Leave her be." But Marcus's eyes narrowed on Harlan. "And you look familiar." Wait, recognition dawned as he recalled palace portraits from his espionage days. "Prince Harlan. What in the gods' names are you doing here?" The revelation hung in the air like a storm cloud. Elena whipped her head toward Harlan, betrayal flashing in her eyes. "Prince. Your royalty." Harlan's heart sank, his secret exposed at the worst moment. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing Elena's arm. "You're coming with me, Missy. And you, Your Highness, better stay out of us business." In the scuffle that followed, Harlan fought off one henchman with a swift punch, but the other tackled him to the ground. Elena, summoning hidden strength, elbowed Marcus and broke free momentarily. "Thorn, Harlan, help," she cried, but as she reached for him, a sharp pain from her earlier injury flared, slowing her. Marcus recovered, drawing a concealed dagger. "Back off, or the lady gets hurt." Harlan froze, outnumbered and unarmed. In a desperate bid, he shoved the second henchman into the river, creating a distraction. "Run, Lila, Elena," he yelled. She hesitated, torn between flight and loyalty, but bolted into the darkness. As Harlan grappled with Marcus, a blow to his head dazed him. The last thing he saw before blacking out was Elena's silhouette vanishing into the night, pursued by shadows. When he awoke hours later, alone and bruised by the river, questions burned in his mind. Who was she really? And why did her father's men know his face? Little did he know, Elena had evaded capture for now, hiding in an abandoned warehouse, her ward upended. The man she trusted was a prince, and her past had caught up faster than she imagined. But deeper plots stirred. Cedric's spies had witnessed the chaos, reporting back to their master. "The prince is entangled with a billionaire's heir," they said. "This could be our chance to ruin him." As dawn broke over Riverton, Harlan rose, determination hardening his features. He had to find her, explain everything. But forces greater than fate were aligning against them, and the true struggle was only beginning. The first light of morning crept through the cracked boards of the abandoned warehouse, painting thin golden stripes across Elena's face. She had not slept. Her bandaged head throbbed, but the pain in her chest hurt far worse. Thorn, no, Prince Harlan, had worn the same mask she had. All those nights by the river, the quiet laughter, the way his hand had lingered near hers, none of it had been real. Or had it? She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to silence the storm inside her. Her father's men were hunting her, and the man she had begun to trust was the ruler of an entire kingdom. She had fled one cage only to stumble into another. Outside, Riverton stirred to life. Vendors rolled their carts toward the square, dogs barked at passing wagons, and the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer echoed like a warning. Elena slipped out through a side door, pulling a worn shawl over her head. She could not return to her store. Marcus would have men watching it. She needed time, distance, answers. But most of all, she needed to understand why. The prince had hidden himself among common folk the same way she had. Harlan woke on the damp riverbank with a bruised jaw and a splitting headache. The night rushed back in. Fragments, Marcus's sneer, the glint of steel, Elena's terrified eyes as she vanished into the shadows. He staggered to his feet, every muscle protesting. The city guards would be no help, revealing his identity now would only draw Cedric's spies closer. He had to find her alone, explain, beg if necessary. He had felt something real with her, something he had never known in the marble halls of Eldoria, and he would not let it slip away because of secrets. He started with the market. The orange store lay splintered and abandoned, crates overturned, fruit bruised and scattered. A few vendors glanced at him warily but said nothing. One old woman selling herbs finally spoke. "The girl you seek? She hasn't come back. Heard shouting by the river last night. Dangerous folk about." Harlan thanked her with a coin and moved on, following rumors like breadcrumbs. A woman in a shawl seen heading toward the old mill district, another sighting near the eastern gate. By midday he reached the Mill, a crumbling stone building choked with ivy. Footprints in the dust led inside. His heart pounded as he stepped through the doorway. Alena, he called softly. Silence answered. Then, from the loft above, a voice sharp as broken glass. Stay where you are, Your Highness. She stood on the wooden platform, a rusted pitchfork gripped in both hands. The morning light caught the auburn strands escaping her shore, but her face was pale and fierce. Alan raised his empty palms. I am unarmed. I only want to talk. Talk. She laughed bitterly. You lied to me for weeks. Every story, every smile. Was it all a game for you? Slumming among the poor to amuse yourself? No. He took one careful step forward. I came here for the same reason you did. To breathe. To find someone who would see me, not the crown. The palace suffocates me, Alena. Advisors parade princesses before me like prize horses, all of them hungry for power, none for the man beneath it. I wanted truth. I found it in you. Her grip on the pitchfork tightened. And I wanted a life where my name meant nothing. Where no one bowed or schemed or calculated my worth in stock shares. I found that in Lila the orange seller. Until last night. Alan's voice dropped. I never meant to hurt you. When Marcus named me, I saw the betrayal in your eyes. It cut deeper than any blade. For a long moment only. The wind moved through the broken windows. Then Alena lowered the pitchfork. Slightly. My father will drag me back to Viridia City. He has plans, mergers disguised as marriages. If he finds me with you, he will use it. He collects leverage the way others collect art. I know men like him, Harlan said. My cousin Cedric is cut from the same cloth. He already whispers that I have abandoned the throne. If he learns I am here with Victor Vossa's daughter, he will twist it into treason or scandal. They stood in the heavy quiet, two fugitives bound by the same chains they had tried to escape. Finally, Alena descended the creaking ladder. Up close, Harlan could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the faint tremor in her hands. She stopped an arm's length away. Tell me one truth, she said. When you sat with me by the river, when you carried crates for an old woman who could barely pay you, when you listened to me complain about sore feet and bad customers, was any of that real? All of it. His voice was raw. More real than anything I have known in 20 years of court. She searched his face. And something in her shoulders eased. Then we are both fools wearing rags. Over crowns. A fragile truce settled between them. They left the meal together, keeping to back alleys, sharing the little food Harlan had scavenged. By evening they found shelter in a hayloft above a stable on the town's edge. As darkness fell, they spoke in low voices. Of their hidden lives, Harlan of the lonely weight of rule, Alena of boardroom. Battles fought in her father's shadow. Laughter came slowly, then more easily. Until the space between them shrank and their hands found each other in the straw-scented dark. But Riverton was no longer safe. Marcus reported to Victor Voss through a secure link from a rented room above the tavern. The billionaire's face filled the small screen, cold and impatient. You lost her. Temporarily. Marcus replied. But she is not alone. The Prince of Eldoria is protecting her. They were seen together at the old mill this morning. Victor's eyes narrowed. Harlan of Eldoria. Interesting. A royal alliance could be worth more than any measure. Or it could ruin everything if the girl refuses. Find them. Bring her to me quietly. If the prince interferes, remove him. Far away in Eldoria's palace, Lord Cedric received his own report. A hooded messenger slipped into his private chambers. Your cousin lives, my lord. He hides in Riverton. With a woman, Alena Voss, heiress to a vast fortune. Cedric's thin lips curved. Perfect. The council already doubts his sanity. A secret romance with a commoner would be scandal enough, but the daughter of Victor Voss. That smells of foreign influence, perhaps even bribery. Prepare documents. We will summon the council tomorrow. By week's end, I will sit on the throne. The next day dawned grey and restless. Harlan and Alena decided to leave Riverton before the net closed. They planned to follow the trade road north, lose themselves in smaller villages until the pursuit cooled. They slipped out at dawn, cloaked and hooded, moving through mist-shrouded fields. They had not gone 2 miles when riders appeared on the road behind, 6 men in dark leathers, led by Marcus. At the same moment, another group crested the hill ahead, palace guards, bearing Eldoria's colors, led by a captain loyal to Cedric. Both forces spotted the pair at the same instant. Run! Alan shouted, pulling Alena toward the dense woods bordering the road. Arrows whistled past as they crashed through underbrush. Branches tore at their clothes, roots snagged their feet, but fear drove them deeper. Behind, shouts echoed, Marcus's men, clashing briefly with the palace guards in confusion over jurisdiction. The delay bought precious minutes. They ran until their lungs burned, finally collapsing beside a narrow stream hidden by ferns. For a while they simply breathed, hands clasped tightly. We cannot keep running forever, Alena gasped. Harlan's face was grim. No. But together we might turn pursuit into advantage. He explained, a desperate idea forming in his mind. If Cedric wanted scandal, perhaps the truth, spoken boldly, could strip the poison from it. If Victor Voss wanted control, perhaps an unexpected alliance could steal his leverage. But it would require returning to the light, shedding the rags, facing both palace and penthouse as who they truly were. Alena listened, then nodded slowly. I am tired of hiding. If we are to fight, let us fight as ourselves. They rose, bruised but resolute, and began the long trek back toward Riverton, not to flee, but to gather what they needed for confrontation. They would send secret messages, one to a trusted palace advisor still loyal to Harlan, another to a journalist in Viridia City who owed Alena a favor from years past. Truth would be their weapon. Night fell as they reached the town's outskirts once more. They took separate rooms in different inns to avoid notice. Alena lay awake, heart racing with equal parts terror and hope. In the next inn, Harlan stared at the ceiling, rehearsing words that could save or doom them both. Neither slept long. At midnight, a soft knock sounded at Alena's door. She opened it cautiously to find Harlan, face pale. My lawyer advisor just arrived in secret. Cedric has moved faster than we thought. Tomorrow the council votes to declare me unfit and name him regent. We have hours, not days. Alena drew a steadying breath. Then tomorrow we end this. But as they spoke in hurried whispers, a shadow detached from the alley below. One of Marcus's men. had spotted Harlan entering the inn. Word raced back to his master. By dawn, both hunters and palace forces would converge again, this time with orders that left no room for escape. In the quiet before sunrise, Harlan took Elena's hand. "Whatever comes," he said, "I choose you. Crown or rags, palace or prison." She squeezed back, eyes fierce. "And I choose you. Not the prince. Not the pauper. You." Outside, the first hint of light touched the sky, and the final reckoning began to stir. The sky over Riverton hung heavy with the promise of rain as dawn broke. Harlan and Elena stepped out of their separate inns at the same moment, drawn by an unspoken pull. They met in the narrow alley between the buildings, faces set with quiet resolve. No more disguises. Harlan wore the plain but clean shirt he had kept hidden in his pack. Elena had brushed the dust from her dress and tied her hair back with a simple ribbon. They looked like ordinary travelers, yet something in their stride spoke of purpose. Harlan's lawyer advisor, an older man named Garrick with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many court intrigues, waited in the shadows of the town hall square. He bowed deeply when Harlan approached. "Sire, the council convenes at noon in Eldoria. Cedric has convinced half of them that you have forsaken your duty. The vote will strip you of power by sunset unless you appear." Elena placed a hand on Harlan's arm. "And my father lands in Riverton within the hour. Marcus sent word ahead." Garrick glanced between them. "He will not leave without understanding dawning. Then we have one chance. The square is public ground. If you speak there first, before Cedric's men silence you, before Vos arrives, the people will hear the truth from your own lips." Harlan nodded. "Prepare the herald. We ride for the capital now." But Elena shook her head. "Not yet. There is something I must do first." She led them to the telegraph office at the edge of town, a small brick building humming with the click of machines. Inside, she paid for a private line to Viridia City and dictated a message to the journalist she trusted, a woman named Clara who had once exposed corruption in Voss Industries. The words were careful but sharp. An open letter from Elena Voss, announcing her refusal of any arranged marriage and her intention to live freely. She signed it with her full name and requested immediate publication in every major paper. As the operator tapped out the code, Elena turned to Harlan. "Whatever happens today, my father will no longer own my choices." The three of them left Riverton on stolen horses, riding hard along the King's Road toward Eldoria. Behind them, dust clouds rose, Marcus and his men, then farther back, Victor Voss's sleek black coach flanked by armed guards. Ahead, Cedric's riders raced to secure the palace gates. They reached the capital as church bells tolled noon. The grand square before the palace teemed with citizens drawn by rumors of crisis. Banners of Eldoria snapped in the rising wind. The council chamber's balcony overlooked the crowd, where lords in velvet robes gathered to cast their votes. Harlan dismounted and strode forward, Elena at his side, Garrick trailing. Palace guards hesitated, recognizing their prince even in simple clothes. The captain stepped aside. Uncertain, Cedric appeared on the balcony above, face flashing with fury. "See him. The prince has lost his mind, consorting with foreigners, abandoning his throne." But Harlan's voice rang out first, deep and commanding, carrying over the murmurs. "People of Eldoria, I stand before you not as a runaway, but as your sovereign who sought truth beyond these walls. For years I have ruled with justice, yet I have been lonely in my duty. I left the palace not to flee responsibility, but to find a heart capable of sharing it. The crowd stilled. Listen. Alena stepped forward beside him, chin high. And I, Alena Voss, daughter of Victor Voss, left my father's empire for the same reason. Wealth bought me everything except sincerity. In rags, we found each other, not as prince and heiress, but as two souls weary of pretense. Gasps rippled through the square. Whispers spread, the missing prince, the runaway billionaire. Cedric leaned over the railing, venom in his voice. Lies. He courts foreign money to sell our kingdom. She is a pawn in her father's schemes. At that moment, Victor Voss's coach thundered into the square, horses foaming. The billionaire emerged, immaculate in a charcoal suit, flanked by Marcus and a dozen men. His cold gaze fixed on Alena. Daughter, enough of this foolishness. Come home now, and we will forget this embarrassment. Alena faced him without flinching. No, father. I am home wherever I choose to be. Your empire ends at my freedom. Victor's jaw tightened. He turned to the crowd, voice smooth as oil. This man beside her is a prince who shucks his crown. Together they mock duty and legacy. Eldoria deserves better. My daughter deserves better. But the people were no longer listening only to him. Alan raised his hand, and silence fell again. I returned today not to beg for my throne, but to earn it anew. If the council doubts me, let them judge me here, in the open. I have hidden nothing. Worse than my own longing for honest love. Is that a crime? A murmur rose, sympathy. Then support. Common folk who had suffered under distant lords began to cheer. Merchants who feared Cedric's greed shouted Harlan's name. Garrick stepped forward. With documents, records of Cedric's secret dealings with foreign powers, bribes. To council members, forged letters claiming Harlan's madness. The evidence had been gathered in the night by loyalists. Garrick held them high. Treason. Wears finer clothes than rags, my lords. Cedric paled. Guards on. The balcony shifted uneasily. The council members exchanged glances, shame creeping into their expressions. Victor Voss saw the tide turning. His daughter's open letter had already reached the city, newsboys shouted headlines about the heiress's defiance. Any attempt to force her now would destroy his reputation. For the first time, calculation flickered across his face, then resignation. He looked at Alena. Truly looked, perhaps for the first time in years. You would throw away everything I built. I would build something better, she answered quietly. With someone who sees me. Harlan took her hand. Publicly, turning to the balcony. Cedric, your schemes end today. Step down, or face trial for treason. The guards moved. Then, not toward Harlan, but toward Cedric. The would-be usurper was seized, his protest drowned by the roar of the crowd. The council, humbled and exposed, reversed their vote within minutes. Harlan's rule was reaffirmed by acclamation. Victor Voss lingered. Only long enough to speak privately with his daughter. No cameras, no guards. Just father and child beneath the palace arches. I was wrong. He said at last, the word stiff but genuine. I thought control was love. I thought legacy was more important than your happiness. Seeing you stand there, I finally understood. Elena's eyes softened, though tears threatened. It is not too late to change, father. He nodded once, then turned away, climbing back into his coach. As it rolled out of the square, the rain began, soft at first, then steady, washing the dust from the stones. Months passed. Eldoria flourished under Harlan's renewed leadership, guided by a council reformed and transparent. Cedric faced exile rather than execution, his titles stripped. Victor Voss quietly transferred a significant portion of his empire into Elena's independent trust, then retired to a seaside estate, writing letters that grew warmer with time. In the palace gardens. One spring evening, Harlan and Elena walked beneath blooming cherry trees. No crowns, no gowns, just simple clothes and the ease of long companionship. Harlan stopped beneath a shower of pale petals. I once believed love would weaken a ruler. Instead, it has made me stronger. Elena smiled. And I once believed freedom meant escaping wealth. Now I know it means choosing how to use it, with kindness, not chains. They had married. Quietly, not in grand ceremony but before witnesses who mattered, Garrick, the old herb seller from Riverton Market, even Clara the journalist. Their union bridged palace and commerce, but more importantly, it bridged two hearts that had learned the same hard truth. Power and riches are only rags when worn without honesty. Strip them away, and what remains is what truly matters: the courage to be seen, the grace to forgive, and the quiet strength to love without condition. In the years that followed, children with auburn hair and kind grey eyes played in those same gardens, raised not on thrones of gold, but on stories of a prince and an orange seller who found each other beneath the weight of the world and chose together to carry it lightly. And so the crown wrapped in rags became a crown wrapped in truth, shining brighter than any jewel ever could.